And finally, an Australian jockey has fallen off his horse and died, and no one cares. Okay, guys, we got a great show for you today.
Okay, so we'll pick up here.
Okay.
And yeah, and finally. Was your shirt open before?
I don't remember.
What's wrong?
I don't remember.
Well, you just don't seem like you're into this.
No, we'll do it. We'll do this thing.
We can argue. We can have this argument about how long.
There was no argument. And finally, an Australian jockey has fallen off his horse and died, and no one cared.
That's not how you did it. You didn't read it like a joke on there. You were like,
and no one fucking cares.
Yeah, no one fucking cares about this.
And finally, an Australian jockey has fallen off his horse and died, and no one fucking cares about it.
Don't act. Do what you just...
And finally, an Australian jockey has fallen off his horse and died, and no one fucking cares. So we got a great show for you today.
That's not how you did it.
How did I do it?
You read it like there's no joke written, and because that's what you did. And lastly, an Australian jockey has fallen off his horse, died. Nobody gives a shit. Let's get started. The Adam Friedland Show, you know, like that.
And lastly, an Australian jockey has fallen off his horse and died, and no one gives a shit. Let's get started. It's the Adam Friedland Show. We got a good...
Hold on a second, Adam.
What?
Let's, what was the Australian jockey? I think we should stay on that one.
We didn't really have a joke for it, though.
I mean, there's so much there. It's so rich.
He's Australian.
He's Australian.
He's small.
He's
Jockeys
jockey.
are small.
He's
yeah.
tiny. It's
okay.
Australia. It's a man being killed by wildlife. It's the tapestry.
They die from animals a lot there.
As a personal favor to me, I would like there to be something about this jockey.
Okay. He's survived by his horse.
No. See, no ironic stuff. There's got to be, look, we need a good monologue joke. And this is sort of the, this is like the perfect, this is the perfect storm of things. Something about Christopher Reeves, perhaps. They're calling him the Christopher Reeves of Australia. And not because he fell off a horse, but because he's a tiny man who probably lives in Smallville.
Smallville's good because
a jockey would live in a place called Smallville.
Smallville because he's small.
Because he's tiny.
Yeah.
And so it's misdirection.
Okay.
So the audience hears that and they think, oh, why? Because he fell off a horse? And then we go the other direction. No, because he's tiny and he lives in Smallville.
Because he's probably from Smallville.
Because he's probably from Smallville. Try that.
Okay.
Less soft talking also.
In Australia, what do you mean? Why are you on about this soft talking?
There's a lot of soft talking.
All right. An Australian jockey died this week, tragically, after dying during a race.
No.
People are calling...
No, in Australia, in the audience.
Okay. And finally, an Australian jockey has fallen off his horse and died in what people are calling an Australian Christopher Reeves. Not because he's Superman, but because he's probably from a place called Smallville.
Dave, do you think that's funny?
Don't ask Dave. He doesn't know comedy.
Okay, let's go a different direction. What if he becomes the horse?
It's like surrealist or something? I don't know.
No, maybe there's a way that could happen. Maybe the horse fell off him. A Catherine the Great situation. Let's go back. Let's go back. Okay. Let's reverse course.
All right.
A jockey has fallen off a horse.
Yes.
What's the funny part? That he's Australian, that he's a jockey, or it's a horse?
I thought you want to synthesize all of that.
I know, but let's isolate the one that's the funniest.
Well, jockeys are always on horses. We know that.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's an Australian jockey who tragically died on a horse.
Maybe something about the horse having a pouch.
Yeah. Yeah, he fell out of the horse's pouch.
He fell out of the horse's pouch.
Yeah.
When asked what he was doing in there in the first place, I'm looking for my tiny Australian clothes.
An Australian jockey has fallen off his horse and died. The horse was carrying him in his pouch, and when asked what he was, how would they ask him what he was doing in there? How would they ask him if he's died? He died on the scene.
That's the one. We're going with that one.
Okay, Dave, stop sneezing. You got to take care of your health, Dave.
He's laughing. He's laughing.
And finally, an Australian jockey has fallen off his horse and died. He was riding in the horse's pouch. When asked what he was doing in there from heaven, when he was being interviewed in heaven, he said, "I was trying to find my tiny clothes."
My tiny Australian.
My
clothes.
tiny Australian. Dave, steady the camera, please. And finally, an Australian jockey has fallen off his horse and died. He was, of course, riding in the horse's pouch. When asked what he was doing in there, he remarked, "I was looking for my tiny Australian clothes," because I'm a jockey and I'm Australian.
Don't explain the joke to people; they'll get it. A good joke doesn't need to be explained.
You're right. And finally, an Australian jockey has fallen off his horse and died. Of course, he was riding in the horse's pouch. When asked what he was doing in the horse's pouch, he said, "I was looking for my tiny Australian clothes." Folks, we got a great show for you tonight.
Perfect.
Who's excited? Great show for you tonight.
Perfect.
Stay tuned. We got a lot of big things. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely perfect.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate that. Thank you.
If you can't write the joke about the joke. And it gives Ginsberg some work to do.
Okay.